Welcome back to the Zero Carbon City International Forum. Let us start again for plenary session 2 on the role of cities toward decarbonization, necessity of support by international organizations and national governments. The moderator is Ms. Kobe Brandt, ICLEI Deputy Secretary General and also Regional Director, ICLEI Africa Secretariat. So Kobe-san, over to you.
Thank you very much. What an honor for ICLEI and for myself to be here with you today, honorable governors and mayors and leaders who are showing us that we can indeed, through action, collaboratively and individually as cities, make a difference, maybe the deciding difference that will put us on a new course towards that zero carbon target for 2050. It is my pleasure and privilege to be joining Minister Koizumi and the government of Japan, IGES and ICLEI, our colleagues in Japan, today in this important session, and to introduce to you a very distinguished panel of local leaders who are changing the world as we speak. So today we are going to focus on that achievement of the zero carbon target by 2050 and understanding what is the role of cities to collaborate with each other and to do what they do locally, but also take hands and work internationally through city networks and also with national governments in their own countries, but also in the international arena. Without further ado, I want to remind you that you can either choose your language in Japanese or English for this session. And then we're going to go through a panel of the very distinguished guests here today to share their thoughts. To start us off with, we're going directly to Mr. Gonzalo Munoz, who is the high-level climate champion of the UNFCCC. And Mr. Munoz, if you can share some thoughts from your side about why cities are important and why their networks and collaboration with you in your ambitions for COP26 is so vital this year with a race to zero and other initiatives that you are leading. Thank you.
Thanks so much, dear Kobe. Also, thanks to the Ministry of the Environment, to IGES, ICLEI, and of course the UNFCCC for having me here today at the Zero Carbon City International Forum. It's a real honor to join you at this forum, as it's inspiring to hear the discussions that have already taken place and to feel the momentum building in this event itself. To me, and also for my fellow and friend high-level champion from the UK, Nigel Topping, this year is all about multi-stakeholder collaboration and convergence. We need to bring together actors across society in order to achieve a decarbonized economy. Partnership and working together is key. That's why at the Climate Champions team, we speak about radical collaboration, because that is precisely what Race to Zero was set up for. As a campaign, it brings together non-state actors in a credible alliance to drive forward net zero by working together and all committing to ambitious goals and a concrete common objective in the center, net zero by 2050, the latest. Ultimately, by uniting these voices across society, we can activate what we are calling the ambition loop with national governments, in which Japan is a great example. And the COP26 in Glasgow will be a fantastic opportunity to showcase the achievements and the progress toward net zero. So I hope that everybody here in this webinar will help us erase all the learnings from Japan. Cities and local governments definitely play a crucial role in this transition and in activating the ambition loop, because they bring together so many non-state actors and policymakers. So really acting as a bridge between national governments, policymakers, and other actors across society. Race to Zero is looking to unlock this potential of collaboration. In doing so, we can see so many mini ambition loops within a city ecosystem. The campaign is driving our universities to work more closely with cities toward net zero. It's also helping our healthcare institutions who have been committing to decarbonization to enable cities to take that step too. But also in reverse, cities have such strong leverage over these non-state actors and can provide the infrastructure support and definitely also policy shifts to snowball change across society by committing to net zero. It's also clear that committing to net zero, to ambitious interim targets, and to clear plan for achieving decarbonization is not a burden, but rather a tremendous, tremendous opportunity. People want to live in cities which are healthier, cleaner, thriving. And so net zero cities will definitely attract the best and brightest minds, successful companies, thriving universities, and important investments. It's fantastic to see already 91 Japanese cities in Race to Zero. And I'm also aware that the number of net zero committed Japanese cities and prefectures just exceeded 300, represented 100 million inhabitants, which is 80% of Japanese population. That is something to be celebrated worldwide. This is a remarkable achievement globally, and I urge all these 300 cities and prefectures in Japan to join Race to Zero, especially giving the tremendous support and effort of the Japanese national government, and namely by Minister Koizumi in driving towards net zero. It's extremely powerful to see this national call to action to be taken up and driven forward by cities and local governments themselves. I also want to see cities across the region following suit and share their knowledge on how they can work with different stakeholder groups to achieve net zero. Finally, Race to Zero is a truly global campaign, and so seeing this kind of ambition and leadership across Asia will definitely be very inspiring to cities across the globe. Thank you very much. Looking forward to continue collaborating with you.
Thank you so much. And how wonderful for a high-level champion of climate in the United Nations to be saying these bold statements about how important cities are, and also highlighting the strong, bold leadership that is coming from Japanese cities and under the leadership of a fantastic, innovative ministry. And Minister Koizumi is, of course, no stranger to the world of climate, and he has inspired indeed many cities and all of us in the work that they do. True multi-level governance. And let us stay with Japan for a little bit longer. We now move to Mayor Fumiko Hayashi, and she is the Lady Mayor of the city of Yokohama. She's going to address us, and then afterwards I understand that Mayor Hayashi is going to leave us, but we are very pleased to welcome Mr. Kobayashi, the Deputy Mayor of the same city, Yokohama, to stay with us for the duration of this webinar. So over to you, Mayor Fumiko.
Thank you for introduction, Ms. Kobe, and so Mr. Koizumi, Minister, and so other distinguished colleagues. Thank you very much for giving me these precious opportunities. As it was mentioned by the Minister Koizumi here in Japan, and so execution of a zero carbon city is surpassed 100 million, and Prime Minister Suga declared that Japan's to achieve a zero carbon or carbon neutral by 2050. And so the city-to-city collaboration is very important to achieve this in December last year. And so and to enhance the collaboration between national government and local government and the Council for the National and Regional the Government for Decarbonization was formed. And Yokohama is a member of that. And last month, we have also launched our local committee. 160 local municipality is part of this. And so as the chairman of these committees, I would like to share the learning among the local governments and also form a policy suggestion and proposal. And in order to achieve a decarbonization, I think the collaboration beyond the local government frameworks is important. And we are transitioning to 100% renewable energy, and 3.5 plus million people live in Yokohama. And so the potential of the renewable energy is like other the major cities. The effort made so far is not sufficient. And so 13 and local government who are sometimes a distance over 600 kilometers. And so 31 local the businesses, we have a biomass-based power generation. So this is the first kind of project executed here in Japan. And I hope that this will facilitate to make a new model between the collaboration with the different cities. And so a decarbonization domino effect promoted by the Minister Koizumi, I hope that our work will contribute to this effort. We would like to work with the national government. And Yokohama is also promoting the collaboration with the overseas cities. C40 and ICLEI, we are part of many international alliances and collaborations. And we've been exchanging information and the views. And so we also enhance the collaboration with the cities in Asian countries. And so utilizing the know-how and the technology and whiteboard project. And so we've been embarking on from the 2021. And so to do this, we are making plans and supporting plans to promote this carbon neutral. And done in Vietnam, and the PV power generations and the sewage treatment, wastewater treatments, and the power supply. And we've been contributing to those efforts in Asian countries. A whiteboard project, it is not just for the emerging cities, but that is also contributing to the creating new business opportunities. And sustainable smart city making in Asia is one of our target. And since 2020, we've been on Asian the conferences. And so the vision for the growth in Asia, and so innovative solution proposal from the academia and technology, and is forums to look at to make new opportunities for business. And the 9th meeting was held the other day. And so the carbon neutral focused, a smart city was focused, and over 40 the country participated. And so Minister Koizumi was also attended this conference. And then also international experts were there to exchange knowledge and experts. And so as a leader of Japan and whose national government declared net carbon neutral by 2050, we would like to continue to work with the overseas cities. And not just in Japan, but in Asia, we would like to contribute to achieving net zero carbon. So decarbonization efforts, the lifestyle of the individual needs to change. So promoting those actions to be taken by the citizen is a role to play by us. And so the people do have a high awareness of the environment. And so we've been disseminating information actively, and so focusing on university students here in Yokohama. The new network of university is being built. So the 27th of this month, Earth Hour 21, declared the organization of the network of university students and participation in the international conferences. And so those future generation needs to be enlightened more, and so that we can start a movement from Yokohama. So whether or not we can stop global warming, we're at the watershed. In order to achieve the target set out under the Paris Agreement, we have to work together. So the beautiful planet needs to be kept and maintained, and so that we can hand over beautifully to the next generation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And what inspirational actions is being driven in Yokohama. And I think, a true inspiration for us as we now travel west. But thank you very much, Mayor Hayashi, for your inputs and also for making your deputy mayor available to stay with us. We really appreciate it very, very much, sharing these wonderful stories and commitments from your side. We're now going a little bit west before we come back to the east again, but we're going to go all the way to the USA, where we're going to hear a statement from Mayor Frank Carney, who is the mayor of Des Moines in Iowa, and over to Frank Carney, who is no stranger to the leadership of cities around the world, the giving voice and inspiration to cities from the USA, but also around the world. Over to Mayor Frank Carney.
Mr. Koizumi and distinguished guests, my name is Frank County. I serve as the mayor of the city of Des Moines, Iowa in the United States. I am also the president of ICLEI, Local Governments for Sustainability, the global network that connects 2,000 cities and regions in more than 120 countries committed to sustainable urban development. I commend the Ministry in Environment, IGES, and the leadership of Minister Koizumi for this impressive mobilization of Japanese net zero cities and prefectures. I am proud of the ICLEI network has provided valuable support in these efforts for so many years. Today's forum is encouraging to see the exemplary model of Japanese government's commitment and action towards multi-level collaboration. Through this message, I would like to highlight 3 key messages from ICLEI. The journey of U.S. cities in the race to zero, our efforts for the second U.S. NDC, and our invitation to the Japanese government towards COP26. In Des Moines, we have already committed to climate neutrality by 2050 and are making strides to get there with renewable energy goal of energy by 2035, which is being called the most ambitious of any U.S. city. I'm happy to announce that Des Moines is joined by hundreds of other cities thanks to the efforts of ICLEI. Through its ClearPath tool, ICLEI has helped more than 600 local governments in the U.S. to develop greenhouse gas inventories so that they would have a baseline for action. More than 200 of those governments have modeled over 2,000 climate strategies and are working with ICLEI to monitor their progress as well as transparency through the CDP ICLEI Unified Reporting Platform. ICLEI has already calculated the 2030 science-based target for more than 500 local governments. And let me tell you, the numbers we are seeing are daunting. Over the next decade, cities must take a level of action that is truly transformative in order to meet these targets. They will need a level of technical and financial support dedicated to climate action unlike anything we have ever seen before. So we're going a step further. ICLEI US made an additional pledge of our own to support hundreds of cities to join the race to zero. We will help 150 cities create a custom roadmap to the highest impact activities they can take to meaningfully reduce their emissions by 2030. ICLEI's experts will provide the technical support to put these high impact actions into motion while advocating for resources cities need to succeed. This is ambitious indeed. However, the climate crisis requires nothing less. As an ICLEI leader, I'll be working to make sure these ICLEI 150 set the example required ahead of COP26. Setting a good example is not new to U.S. cities, but local, state, and federal collaboration is the new challenge we are working to accomplish in the U.S. Over the previous 4 years, the United States relied heavily on local and subnational governments to assure the world that the nation's commitment to the Paris Agreement would be met. Clearly, cities remain committed and provided the United States with an opportunity to develop a second NDC that prioritizes subnational action as a means to achieve national targets. In January 2021, ICLEI announced a set of proposals for priority actions to the Biden-Harris administration, and since then have been collaborating with sister networks like U.S. Conference of Mayors, Climate Mayors, C40, and others alike. I am personally in contact with U.S. Special Climate Envoy John Kerry and National Advisor Gina McCarthy, urging them both to recognize the second U.S. NDC as an opportunity to, 1, recognize the importance of the subnational governments in achieving our national and international goals, and 2, commit to prioritize and support cities and counties in climate mitigation, adaptation, and green recovery in its national climate action policies and plans. We look forward to the recognition of the climate action efforts of U.S. cities as well as those that have set science-based targets and are on the race to zero in the second and hopefully more ambitious U.S. NDC to be submitted by April 22nd, 2021. In the preamble of the Paris Agreement in 2015, nations acknowledged the importance of engagement at all levels of government in global climate action. Therefore, adoption of new and ambitious NDCs this year is the once-in-a-generation opportunity to make sure that multi-level collaboration should be our new normal in the era of the Paris Agreement and post-COVID-19 pandemic. The new NDCs in Chile, Rwanda, Peru, Dominican Republic, and the UK were recognized in 2020 as good practices. If transformed into its third NDC, these remarkable multi-level collaboration in Japan can set a precedent to the world that nations can raise climate ambition if and when they engage their cities and other subnational governments. The LGMA constituency of local and regional governments at the UN FCCC is aimed to turn Glasgow COP26 into the multi-level action COP. This can be possible if we can advance our collaboration with the countries who have reflected this spirit into their NDCs and thereby can be recognized as the UN FCCC Friends of Multi-Level Action. We sincerely believe the Japanese government can demonstrate a new type of leadership in this field. ICLEI, as the LGMA focal point, will be more than happy to explore appropriate ways to collaborate towards and beyond COP26.
Wow. Frank County is truly our president of ICLEI, and all I can say that I think I'm speaking here on behalf of all the ICLEI staff from across all our 26 offices around the world. We are so honored to have such an inspirational president who leads us politically and also understands our technical depth of work that we bring to all our cities. And thank you very much for those inspirational words. Again, a prime example of multi-level governance in its highest form and how it should work from two different parts of the world. Wow, inspirational this is. And I don't know, Gonzalo Munoz, if you are sensing the same sense of excitement that I am, that maybe, yeah, we are actually going to make a change at COP26, which is going to be that step that we all need to take. Now let us go. And also here from a great city, from the governor, Honorable Governor Baswedan from Jakarta. Jakarta recently received the Sustainable Transport Award 2021. And this has not come easy. Strong competition out there, leading cities competing with Jakarta, but you did it. And do you want to share a little bit with us about your inspiration and your actions in your wonderful city? Please, over to you, Governor.
Thank you, Kobe Brand, for a very generous introduction. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Peace be upon us all. Good evening, good morning, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, on behalf of the Jakarta Capital City Government, I'd like to convey our gratitude for this virtual forum invitations. It is indeed an honor for us. You know, cities are in the foreground of global initiative for carbon neutrality. And therefore, city-to-city collaborations and mutual learning are needed to achieve the zero carbon target by 2050. And Jakarta understands the need to change and the need to move forward toward carbon neutrality and zero carbon society. So our commitment is to be a climate resilient city, which means we commit to cut back greenhouse gas emissions by 50% in 2030 to achieve zero emissions by 2050, and to develop the community's resilience in adapting to the changing environment and climate. Jakarta is the capital city of Indonesia. It is a political and economic center of the country, and this is also the largest metropolitan city in Southeast Asia. And Jakarta is also a city with vulnerable coastal area. So we believe that our city plays a crucial role in the global crisis, both in climate change and also the current pandemic. During the pandemic, Jakarta's policy and actions are not only impacted to the decrease of the degree of virus infections here in the country, but also has given us a positive impact to the environment. One of our rare experience in the city is the improved air quality of our city. We are no longer considered as the top 10 most congested traffic city in the world. And those are examples of small wins in the strive toward climate actions and to achieve the climate resilient city. So some of the actions that we have taken. First, establish feasible city commitment. So Jakarta committed to cut back greenhouse emissions, and this commitment was made based on a tight assessment of the city capacity and capability. Secondly, climate governance. So we started mainstreaming the climate issues across different local units to establish a climate task force in 2020, which consists of several stakeholders. One is public institutions, two private entities, three non-governmental organizations, and also academia. So we believe that ourselves in government cannot do all alone. We need collaborations with various stakeholders, and we also understand that climate issues is the issues of everyone. So ladies and gentlemen, recently, as was mentioned earlier by Kobe Brand, that Jakarta received the 2021 Sustainable Transport Award. This award was fortunately another win for us in our fight on the issue of transportations and mobility. As I mentioned earlier, we used to be known as highly congested city, and that has caused, of course, air pollutions and traffic gridlock, and which often are two issues that we need to combat simultaneously. So some of the fundamental policies behind these transformations. Number one, we moved from car-oriented development city into transit-oriented development cities, and which means zoning regulations were adjusted. We developed integrated public transport. We allow the development of sidewalk. We integrate all transport modes across the city and enable everyone to move from one place to another in a predictable manner. So this is some of our example of our approach. And then we also, as I mentioned earlier, about the sidewalk development. We have seen new habits of our resident, which is walking in the sidewalks. Pedestrian is now common in Jakarta. We also adopted odd-even policy for private vehicles. So we limit the number of private vehicles operating in our streets in a certain time using the odd-even state plate number. And we are now, this year, we adopted a policy of developing electric buses in 2021, and we hope that all new buses in our BRT system are based on electric vehicles. And also, during this pandemic, we have seen a serious jump in the number of cyclists in the city. And therefore, we have also developed bike lanes. So far, we have around 95 kilometers of bike lanes. We will be developing more than 500 kilometers of bike lanes. And in the downtown area, we have seen an increase up to 10 times of cyclists coming in to the downtown area. And then in the old zones of our city, which is called Kota Tua area, we adopted low emission zone, which is car and motorcycle free area. Of course, at the beginning, it created controversy, but it's part of a public education, it's part of a collective learning. And we do hope that at the end, people realize that actually we can live by walking, we can live by cycling, and we can be closer to one another without vehicles or motorized instruments for mobility. So
Thank you.
let me underline some numbers to show that if our effort were done through budget, that's because we have allocated enough fund. But what's needed is the response of the public. And allow me to share here that the ridership in Jakarta increased 82% from 2017 to 2019. And that
Governor, I'm going to have to ask you to wrap up, please. Thank you very much for these inspirational
My
words.
pleasure.
Maybe one
Sorry
last sentence.
for the time, but I do hope this is an experience that can be lesson learned for other cities. Thank you.
Indeed, indeed. And thank you very much, especially for, if I think about the cities in Africa that are just mushrooming and where I'm working in, we can certainly learn from Jakarta, and we will study what you've done to win that wonderful award. And that all contributes. You say it was controversial, but sometimes controversy is good to actually make people think twice. And that all contributes to this revolutionary age, this decade of action that we have now entered in. And staying on that little bit of a revolutionary road, I have the very big pleasure to now turn to the Lord Mayor, Anna Reynolds of Hobart City. And Lord Mayor, you have actually not only done amazing things and are planning amazing things in your own city of Hobart, but you have also led climate emergency declarations across Australia. Why and what are you achieving in that part of the world under the great leadership of yet another woman leader at the local government level?
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me. It's a real pleasure to be here today. As Kobe said, I'm the Lord Mayor of the city of Hobart, which is the capital of Tasmania. And the beautiful city of Hobart is behind me. As you can see, it is a lovely city, but it's also, like many cities around the world, very prone to the impacts of climate change, at risk of the impacts of climate change. And our biggest concern is bushfire. But like lots of other cities, there are many impacts that we're all worrying about, and as are our residents. I'm also involved with ICLEI Oceania. I'm on the Regional Management Committee, and I'm very proud to also be part of the GCOM Global Board. And so it is very much working from local, national, regional and global. And as we all know, as mayors, we are in touch with all of those levels, and the local is where we do our work, and the global is where we get our inspiration. And I want to congratulate all of the cities that we've heard from so far today for all of your inspirational work, because it does inspire us. Sometimes the work we're doing is hard. It does require change, and sometimes our communities and our stakeholders aren't ready for change. But knowing that cities have succeeded in these changes does spur us on and help us actually to really deliver reform. I would like to speak about the zero carbon city trends in Australia, and there are some really positive trends happening. Unfortunately, our government is one of the only national governments that hasn't committed to a zero carbon target, and we will keep working on them over the next few months in the lead up to COP. We'll keep putting lots of pressure on them. But there are many, many cities around Australia taking progressive action. And we're doing this often to make our organisations more innovative and more efficient. Climate zero carbon is a key driver for reforming our buildings, for making our fleets more efficient, for making our rubbish and waste management and recycling systems better. And a lot of us are also taking that next step, and it is a very tough step, of actually having discussions with our communities about how they can also meet zero emission targets. And that is a much deeper conversation, but a very, very important one. And a lot of Australian cities are taking that next step beyond their council organisations to looking at their communities. And a key part of that is the Climate Emergency Declaration. There are nearly 100 cities in Australia that have declared a climate emergency. And it is a really important platform and a statement to make to our communities to say that we are serious about this, and this is a really crucial time in history. Our communities are very concerned about climate change. The public awareness and concern has grown very much in the last couple of years. And so declaring a climate emergency is a way for a city to say, this is serious, we will put this at the top of our priority list. And so for a lot of communities, it's been a very practical way of demonstrating to their communities that they do take this very seriously. Hobart itself has its own targets that we've worked on for nearly 20 years. The council has already cut our emissions by nearly 70% below our 2000 levels. So our last 30% is the really tough work. This is the emissions that are harder to cut. And we have to be innovative, and that's hard when budgets are tight after COVID. But we are working with other cities. We're working with capital cities right around Australia, a big focus on public transport and active transport, and also lobbying our national government to take stronger action. So while the Australian government is promoting a gas-led recovery, Australia actually has the highest rate of rooftop solar power in the world, which is really exciting. While we might be the largest exporter of coal, we are becoming a renewable energy powerhouse through our communities, putting solar panels on their roofs. And that is a really great example of local action delivering really strong shift to zero carbon. So there's good news in Australia, but there's more work to do, and working with all of you in the race to zero and the lead up to the COP26. Very excited to keep working very hard as cities taking climate action. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor Reynolds, and also thank you for the wonderful work that you are doing with your other leaders, local leaders across Australia. And of course, you've got the sunshine. Why not use it? Fantastic. And to hear that it's also driven by communities, for communities. We've heard also from the governor who spoke just now from Jakarta about involving communities and getting that community movement started and behavioral change. That's very much part of what we all need to do. You demonstrated again how powerful it can be if cities connect with one another through their sister city networks, through their own networks in countries, but also at global level. And we now turn to Deputy Mayor Shirley Rodriguez, another fierce female leader at the local government level in London, who is going to share with us some of the amazing initiatives that we keep on seeing coming from London, inspiring all of us. Deputy Mayor Rodriguez, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Kobe, for that introduction. And I'm delighted to be able to join you today on this panel. Working together, as we've heard, is the only way we're going to be able to tackle the climate emergency and get to net zero quickly enough to keep temperature rise below 1.5 degrees C. And of course, as we look to recover from the economic and social impacts of COVID-19, the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, has been really clear that tackling the climate emergency and achieving a just transition is integral to our approach. Our recovery must lead to a cleaner and fairer, more equal city, create good quality jobs, and get us to net zero. The Mayor is committed to make London a net zero carbon city, and in 2018 we were one of the first megacities to develop a climate action plan compatible with the aims of the Paris Agreement. And this sets out a pathway for how we can get to net zero carbon, and it highlighted a number of the no and low regret options that many have talked about, from improving the energy efficiency of our building, decarbonising our transport system, and so on. We've already made a good start. We've created the world's first ultra-low emission zone, which has helped cut air pollution by 44% in the central zone. We've retrofitted over 270 public buildings and over 32,000 homes, installed over, I can't even remember how many thousands of electric vehicle charge points now, but we're hosting 25% of the UK's capacity just in London. But we know that's not enough, and we're in a key decade of action on climate and the environment. So Sadiq has asked for a new target to be set for London. He's committed to make London a net zero carbon city by 2030. And some might say this isn't achievable, but we and he are absolutely clear that we can't afford not to try. So in terms of how we recover from the pandemic and how we tackle the climate and ecological emergencies, he's convened a London Recovery Board with London's local authorities. It brings together the public sector from the health service and the police, businesses, charities, universities, all to help coordinate a green and fair recovery. We've settled on 9 missions, from revitalising our high streets, improving digital access for all Londoners, supporting young people back into work. But one of these 9 missions is to deliver a Green New Deal for London. And the Green New Deal has as its objective tackling the climate and ecological emergencies and improving air quality by doubling the size of London's green economy, so to create good jobs for all. And we do this because we know that a green recovery will strengthen our existing economy. London's green economy is already worth something in the order of £48 billion worth in sales, employs over 320,000 people, and its annual growth rate pre-COVID was around 10%. And it's worth more to our economy than our construction and manufacturing sectors combined. So we want to expand that, and to do that, the Mayor has primed the efforts of the Green New Deal mission with £10 million worth of funding this year, and is committing a further 12 million over the next 2 years. But we know that finance is nowhere near enough. A key challenge for us all is how do we unlock the finance we need to act on climate? The estimated capital cost just of decarbonising London's built environment and infrastructure is £61 billion, and obviously more if we're trying to speed that up to 2030. But it is a huge investment opportunity that will deliver social and environmental benefits, massive ones. And what we're trying to do in London is encourage systemic change by our institutional investors, such as pension funds. So one of the things we're doing is championing divestment of funds from fossil fuels so that we can redirect that funding into climate and green investments. And we've worked with our pension fund to divest almost all the investments from fossil fuels. So we're now just under £3 million worth of fossil fuel investments left in the fund, a reduction of over 90% since Sadiq came into office in 2016. We set up a £500 million fund, which is the UK's largest ever dedicated investment fund for urban efficiency, energy efficiency measures. And we've mobilised £250 million worth of public and private capital funding, and that's led to projects on electric vehicles and heat networks and helped reduce London's CO2 emissions by 12,500 tonnes a year. And we're now working with the Green Finance Institute to identify how we can create a step change to both the size of the project pipeline and the scale of private sector finance that needs to flow into this. And one of the things that we're absolutely looking at is how do we support the funding of nature-based solutions? The Lord Mayor of Hobart talked about, climate adaptation. So we mustn't forget that in tackling the climate emergency, we both mean emissions reduction, but also tackling and adapting to the impacts of climate change. So I hope this has given you just a bit of a glimpse of the challenges and opportunities we have in getting to net zero. We've absolutely prioritised global and national collaboration on climate change, as I've said, on divestment and air pollution as well. And a key focus for us is encouraging cities in the UK and beyond to sign up to the Race to Zero coalition so we can start the COP26 conference, demonstrating to national governments the absolutely higher ambition we all need to set to meet our climate goals. And if we get this right, and of course it's essential we can limit global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees C, and our cities and our communities and our economies will be cleaner and fairer and much more resilient. Thank you.
So much. What inspirational words again coming from London. We see so many fantastic examples. And you mentioned divestment. Imagine imagine it's not hundreds, but thousands of cities doing exactly what London is doing, how that can really fundamentally shift our economy globally speaking as well. And you mentioned the need for just transition and inclusive transition, the rights-based approaches, all key aspects of what we need to do collectively. And I believe we can bring this to the Race to Zero and Race for Resilience initiatives, now driven by our champions. And I'm so particularly pleased that you also mentioned the need for nature-based solutions. And I want to congratulate London for also being the number 100 city that have actually signed up to Cities with Nature, a global initiative where cities are looking at mainstreaming nature, understanding that nature and climate actually go hand in hand, and we can't achieve the one without addressing the other as well. So thank you. Inspiration all around from the cities that we've spoken with here today. So I want to wrap up. We have a few minutes left. We're a little bit over time, but I want to give each of you a very short opportunity, just one opportunity, to reflect a little about what you've heard today and what you would say we now need to do as a collective city family around the world, across our different sister networks, etc., and within your own context, to scale up and to bring what you have talked about here to the rest of the world, so that we can set the course for that zero based target that we have set for 2050. And I'm going to give the floor lastly to Mr. Gonzalo Munoz to reflect from the UNFCCC space. So I'm going to start again with the city of Yokohama, and this time it is going to be our Deputy Mayor, Kobayashi, who is going to take the floor. And really, this time, really 1 minute is fine for you, just to make some really powerful take-out messages for all of us to be inspired and to take with us as we move forward. Thank you. Over to you, Deputy Mayor.
Okay, so I am Deputy Mayor Kobayashi from the city of Yokohama. So a community is the key word I would take back, because the power of cities is power of communities. We have 3.75 million people. We have 18 wards, and each ward has 100,000 to 300,000 people. And then those wards are divided into smaller communities with 100 households to 500 households. There are 2,800 such communities. How can we drive those communities towards zero carbon? For that, we need to have this kind of forum in order to share successful cases and then praise each other in order to expand this kind of network. Minister Koizumi is trying to do exactly that. We now have 150 such communities covering more than a population of 100 million. And this is to implement the actions on the ground. And that's where we need to utilize the power of communities.
Thank you. Very bold, very clear message coming from Japan, and something that is practiced in Japan, as we know already, as we've heard in the opening remarks of this session. Let's go to Jakarta. And Governor Baswedan, what would be your take-out message and your message to cities around the world? How can we scale up? How can we reach this ambition that we are seeing here in leading cities, in all cities around the world?
The keyword is collaborations. And allow me to put that into perspective. We call it vertical and horizontal collaborations. Vertical meanings we need to integrate our approach, our policies with the national government, and then horizontal meaning with the neighboring cities. And a city like Jakarta, for instance, our population is 10 million, but with the surrounding, the population is 35 millions. And I think this is similar to many cities across the globe. The big cities have neighboring areas, and we need to integrate from problem identifications to solutions. Otherwise, we will not be able to achieve our target if neighbors and central governments were not aligned in its objective, visions, and target. So I would say collaborations is keyword, and willingness to listen to our neighbors are key. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Absolutely, so true. And I think we have the right spirit and the right attitude amongst the leaders that are gathered here today to show by and lead by example that it is indeed possible. Lord Mayor Anna Reynolds, what would be your message to the world? How can we take what you are doing in Australia, where perhaps you need to pioneer things in different ways? How can we learn from you and really turn this into a global movement that we've never seen before?
Well, I think the thing for scaling up is really that we need to continue to inspire our communities, and I think the work that local governments are doing has the most chance of inspiring the community to join us and help us deliver deeper emission reductions and to build the resilience of their own communities. Unless we really give people hope, give people a sense that there are solutions, and really harness the community to help us change the politics around climate emission reductions as well, because not all of our national governments are taking strong enough action. And it's only going to be with the people, their voting, their attitudes, their opinions, that we're going to get that stronger action. And I think local government can inspire the community that there is hope, there are solutions, we can see them every day, and now we just need to keep going and keep the pressure on the national governments as well to take those much bigger steps at the policy level nationally.
Thank you very much. And without further ado, let's turn to London. Deputy Mayor Shirley Rodriguez, what would be your message to this forum and as we go out on the road to COP26? What do we need to do still to improve and get to that scale that we all hope and that we all know that's needed to achieve?
I'm going to say pretty much the same thing as everybody else. It has to be based in communities, our communities. So we know that the work that we're doing on the recovery board, for example, we can't impose this as a top-down response. It has to be a bottom-up solution, a bottom-up alliance, bringing together all those people who are invested in our cities, who have a stake in our cities. And that is so powerful because people understand this is how they want to improve and thrive. So engagement with with your citizens is key. But of course, in terms of national and international collaboration, learning from each other through networks like ICLEI and C40 and in the UK or UK 100 and so on, it's so important to discuss and learn from each other, steal each other's ideas. It breeds that healthy competition and greater ambition. And finally, I would say, as citizens and cities, we have to lead by example, and we have to demonstrate that we're taking action. If we try and persuade others, including our national governments, to do more, we need to show that it's doable and possible, and that's much more persuasive. So working through the network, setting stronger targets, but actually, absolutely delivering on them is critical to bringing people along.
Thank you very much for those words. And also, I think on behalf of ICLEI, we want to say thank you very much to those national governments that are opening their arms and their boardrooms and really come to cities and say, how can we work together? And where that happens in a country, one can absolutely see how much further cities can contribute to those NDCs and those global targets set. So let's go back to the UNFCCC and Gonzalo Munoz as a special high-level champion for the UNFCCC and for COP26. What have you learned today, and what is your message back to us as a city community?
Thank you, Kobe. I've learned a lot, but let me try to be brief and unpack it. First, do never diminish the power that cities have in terms of helping increase the national climate ambition and how it can and it must be reflected in the NDCs. Every nation requires cities and national governments to supply with the solutions that have been very well explained here. Second, as all the panelists referred to, it's all about collaboration between sectors. So let's interchange more and more ideas. There's no stealing here. It's all about interchanging ideas, and it's brilliantly reflected in this panel. Then, of course, people and their quality of life must be in the center of plans when solving the challenges towards net zero. And again, all of the panelists referred to that, especially inspired by the four examples I heard about, putting technology and creativity in service of people. And finally, I really believe that a city is nothing but a natural environment highly intervened by humans. So we need nature also well positioned in order to increase its capacity and presence in order to, at the end, reach the required balance towards the net zero and resilient world.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. And I want to say thank you very much to each and every mayor and governor who have joined us here today, this evening, this morning for some of you. I'm going to now hand over to Mr. Fujino, who is from IGES and who is the MC for this panel, to close off this panel. And before I do, I just want to say that you, as cities that have taken a part in this initiative this afternoon, and also over the 2 days that we are gathered here by the government of Japan, IGES and ICLEI, you inspire all of us who serve you, and you really give us the power to go on and take your lessons and share it with others who are not necessarily in the same position with the same level of resources. And I'm particularly talking about the cities from the global south, from Africa, where I'm from as well, because each to their own, they can make a difference. And every city together, if you take hands, we can actually achieve those global targets with our national governments. Thank you for the inspiration I took from today. Over back to IGES, and thank you for the opportunity to moderate this session. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much, Kobe-san, for your wonderful moderation. And the distinguished speakers, high-level champion Gonzalo-san, and the mayors and the vice mayors, for your sharing the very good leaderships and initiatives on zero carbon. Thank you very much. Now it's a time to finish day one. I am happy to invite His Excellency, Mr. Miyazaki Masaru, Parliamentary Vice Minister of the Environment Japan, for his closing remarks. Over to you.
I am Miyazaki Masaru, Parliamentary Vice Minister of the Environment Japan. Under the leadership of Minister Koizumi, I'm mainly in charge of climate change, natural environment, and material cycle policies. In closing of the day one of the Zero Carbon City International Forum, I would like to say a few words. First of all, I'd like to thank once again Steward Ms. Patricia Espinosa, Executive Secretary of UNFCCC, distinguished leaders of various cities, Forum Secretariat, collaborators, and audience for your participation. I'm very pleased because all the presentations made today were so fruitful. And during the plenary session 1 and 2, we were able to confirm how leading cities had set their targets for decarbonization and concrete measures. It is encouraged to know that many local government aims to achieve zero carbon city, that is to realize carbon neutral, and some cities even target to achieve carbon neutral before 2050. Also, it is reassuring to know that cities are taking various creative measures which meet their needs, such as carbon pricing. That is an important policy tool to achieve carbon neutral. Reaffirm that promoting such leading measures to trigger decarbonization domino to expand the areas to neighboring cities and nations is the role to be played by national governments and international organizations. The importance of a city-to-city collaboration was pointed out today. I was pleased to learn the progress and outcome of some of the concrete collaboration efforts made, such as Tokyo Kuala Lumpur and Yokohama Danan City. Tomorrow, After the opening session, there will be 4 panel sessions scheduled, focusing on policy making, energy, finance, and infrastructure. In-depth discussion is expected tomorrow, and I hope speakers newly joined us tomorrow will have productive discussion on each of this topic. I would like to conclude my remarks by wishing for the further progress of decarbonization of cities. Thank you.
Minister Miyazaki, this is the end of the session of today. The second day of the program starts at 4 p.m. Japan Standard Time, around the next 20 hours later. Tomorrow's opening session invites 5 distinguished guests from the Ministry of the Environment Japan, the government of the UK, UN Habitat, the governor of Nagano Prefecture, and the mayor of Kitakyushu. We are happy to see you again tomorrow's session. So thank you very much for joining Day 1, and please have a good day, good night. See you tomorrow.